I do want to defend my position on that show, okay? Because on that show, we said a couple things back and forth, and it's only been a week, and there already has been a lot of interesting follow-ups, okay? There was a lot of hand-waving, I felt, but if you actually listen to what's being said, I found it to be pretty interesting. I'm going to disagree with you on the state of the economy, and I want to hear your thoughts, okay? So this is all deposits at U.S. banks, okay? You'll notice after COVID, with all the stimulus, there's a surge of new money in U.S. banks they have to do something with. Some of them do the quote-unquote safe option, and they put it all into U.S. treasuries long-term, like Silicon Valley Bank.
That didn't turn out so well.
Didn't turn out so well. They collapsed. But other banks decide all this new money is prime for lending. They have to lend. They might have to relax their lending standards in things like auto loans, credit card loans, home equity loans, business loans, and CRE, commercial real estate. And this Jenga block tower here represents all of these different loans. This is credit cards and auto and CRE. This is like the loan book of a major US bank. So around 23 Q1, the number of loans that are non-performing, AKA people not paying them back in default, starts to rise. And then right around 24 Q2, it levels off.
Right.
And people say, it's okay. Again, this chart is the same at all these major banks for all these major classes, credit card, auto.
No question about it.
Okay. As these default rates start to rise, the banks are going to the people that took out these loans, and they're saying, hey, if you can't pay your $10,000 monthly payment for, let's say, a commercial real estate building, we're going to modify that payment, and you can pay $6,000.
Otherwise called extend and
pretend. Extend and pretend. So they start to be doing this extend and pretend strategy for not only CRE, but for auto and credit and a lot of things. This is non-performing loans modified. So this is how they track that they have done this.
Yes.
They basically.
Right.
And
all true.
Yeah. Okay. So
I'm still waiting for the punchline.
Okay. Well, here's the punchline. So around the time that you see that number go flat, is when they are actually modifying loans. To hide the rising default rate.
Yes, they are.
Okay. So you can see here, they track very closely. So the default rate should be rising, but instead they are giving people more and more modified loans. But at least we can track that. If you're an analyst for a bank and you're looking at their stock, you can see, hey, non-owner occupied modified is growing. So at least we know what's going on. And
is your argument that CRE is going to sink the economy?
No, but the combination of CRE, credit, auto, and all of these might be bigger than people think.
Okay.
So as delinquency rises, modification also rises. But then in July 2025, a new rule came out that is making it even harder to track. Now, this was pressured by the banks on the regulators. The institutions now only report loans as modified
if
for the first 12 months they are paying modified.
Oh, no. So in other words, if you modify for the next 12 months, you classify it as modified, and then it goes back to non-modified.
And then it goes back to, so for example,
that's good.
Aiden goes in January, he makes his $6,000 lower payment. He does it in February, he does it in June, he does it all around the year. And then by December, even though he is not back to paying the original $10,000, it is now classified as a performing loan again. It goes back on the books as green.
I'm with you. I got one caveat.
Okay.
Which is the big loan growth in the United States over the last 10 years has not happened in the banks.
Okay.
It's happened outside the banks.
I agree with you, but some of these entities that are outside of the banks seem to be tied back into the banks. Like,
the banks lend to them.
Yeah.
But they don't make the loans that those guys make.
But if those guys fail and the banks lend to them,
it's a problem.
If a bank had 0% modified loans, they failed at basically an 8% rate in 2009. However, if they had above 5% troubled debt restructuring, if they were doing a lot of loan modifications, they were addicted to it, they failed at nearly at 42%, nearly at half the banks. So if banks above 5% troubled debt restructuring failed at nearly half in 2009, and nowadays you look at all the major banks for all of their major loan portfolios, credit, auto, CRE, and they're approaching 8 or 9% TDR. They're modifying their loans at really high rates. And
that's just CRE.
This is just CRE, but I have I don't have 14 graphs, but these graphs, I promise you, they track for Wells Fargo, Bank of America, JP Morgan.
Okay.
Okay,
calm down.
Okay. Finally,
more people need to tell me that. More people need to tell me that.
First of all,
Steve, okay.
The guys who I talk to,
Okay.
the bank guys,
Sure.
believe me, they pour all over. We pour over all this stuff every quarter. Like,
Okay.
you know, when these banks report, the amount of disclosure is astonishing.
Yeah.
It's not like it's hidden. Like, you go through J.P. Morgan's deck, you know what's going on.
Okay.
I mean, it might take you a couple of hours to go through J.P. Morgan's deck, but you know what's going on. I mean, first of all, they're much better capitalized than they were. They have much higher reserve levels than they did. So I actually don't worry so much about what you're talking about.
Okay.
What I worry more about is what I don't know. I don't, as far as I can tell, whatever you're talking about here or whatever is happening in the private world is not going to cause the recession, whenever that recession will be.
Sure.
What I think will happen is there'll be a recession one day, and then we'll find out who did bad crap. but it's not going to. What you're arguing?
think that's a
you're
fair-
making
yeah,
an
yeah.
argument that basically all this stuff is going to create a recession, and I don't think that's true. I don't think it's going to cause a recession.
Okay.
Now, if we have a trade war with China, we're going to have a recession, and then all this stuff will unwind.
So it seems like your view on at least the loans that Brandon is concerned about is more that might have a lot of consequence after a recession happens rather than being the cause of it.
Sure.
But that a China trade war might be a certain cause of it. So I'm curious what you think about that. We've just been reading multiple books about the relationship with China, obviously following everything going on there. What is your take on America and China's relationship and the consequences?
I just can't handicap it at all, honestly. I mean, what we have on China is they export a hell of a lot more to us than we export to them. What they have on us is they got all the rare earth metals.
Right.
And I just don't know how to handicap it.
Why do you feel like that would be so consequential versus anything else that might disrupt the economy?
I think we could live with without a lot of other countries, but we can't live without China.
So there's no credence in your mind that there's been a bit of extend and pretend going on, companies delaying raising prices because of tariffs.
There's some of that going on.
Okay.
There's some of it going on.
Because Powell was talking.
But put it this way: if there was no AI revolution, and Meta, Google, Amazon, Oracle now, and blah blah blah, are spending $400 billion a year building data centers. If that didn't exist, we'd have another story.
Okay.
So that is driving a lot of what's going on. The difference, by the way, the difference between the dot-com bubble versus now is that in the dot-com bubble, you had companies nobody ever heard of who had just gone public,
Right.
who some of them had real businesses like Amazon at that point. Many had no businesses. They just had like a deck.
Right.
And they were spending all this money building out the internet. And they spent like lunatics. And it was too quick, too soon. And we had a tech recession. The difference between, and then a lot of those companies went bankrupt.
Yeah.
The difference between now and then is Google spending $100 billion
Right, they
a
have the
year.
money.
These are real companies. And they're spending it, they're not borrowing, they're spending it out of cash flow.
A parallel I'd like to ask you about is there was a lot of vendor financing in 2001. Where,
Yes, there was.
Cisco would loan someone money to buy Cisco's things. And we're seeing yesterday or 2 days ago, NVIDIA gives $100 billion to OpenAI, who's giving $100 billion to Cisco, who's to Oracle, who's giving $100 billion to NVIDIA. And it's
That bothers me.
Okay, all right,
I don't like when things start to get vendor
it
financing.
feels very insular.
I just know the money being spent on tech is real. It's having some real negative implications for people. So the overall economy is not as good as it could be if all those people had jobs. But unemployment is still pretty low.
Yeah.
So I just don't know how to handle it. I don't have a good answer for you.
What would be kind of a big red or green flag in because your opinion here seems pretty
If
middle
I
of the
started to
road.
see unemployment, if what you're saying starts to cause massive layoffs and unemployment starts to go up, that's a different ballgame.
Okay.
But we just fired the head of the BLS, so maybe we won't get as accurate data as we want.
It's possible.
The three things he said to make us understand that, there's probably not a big issue. It's probably fine. Number one was it'll only go bad if we have a trade war with China. Number two was he said, I could see the consumer getting worse if unemployment rose. if unemployment kept rising, which has been my position for a long time, that unemployment is rising and will continue to rise. And then number 3 was after 2008, we got new rules for the banks. And with the new rules, banks are no longer as susceptible to taking on bad debt. They have to have more tier 1 capital, which is like easily accessible funds to make sure they can handle any shakes in the market. They have a lot more stability, okay? So I just want to go through a few things that happened. These are like news items from this week after the interview. Number 1, this is Friday, but the US and China trade war is clearly escalating again because China has ramped up its blocking of rare earth metals, and in response, US has threatened a 100% increase in tariff November 1st. Now, Trump has not backed down from that yet, though he is still planning to meet with Xi Jinping. I'm sure they'll find some middle ground, hopefully, and slow this down, but it's clearly escalating. If you were to flash forward 1 year, 2 years, do you think we're more integrated with China or less? I think it's less. That's number 1. Let's give that a check mark. But there's still 2 more things. Now, number 2, okay? Again, the BLS statistics are not being reported because our government is shut down, but our unemployment rate is at a near 4-year high. We are in a no hire, some fire economy, and we are having, on the data we can see, a surge in long-term unemployment, ringing alarm bells. People are getting fired and not able to find a new job. It's not that there's like completely no jobs, and it's not like people are all getting laid off all at once, but the people that are getting fired or are getting laid off or are trying to leave their job are finding it very difficult in finding a new job. So slowly but surely, the long-term unemployment is trickling up. So I would say, again, also the ADP data, not the BLS data, but the ADP data came out and it was miserable. It was a contraction in private sector jobs. So I would say, again, maybe it's not right now this second, but the direction of travel on unemployment is up. And then the last thing, this is the key crux of the argument, was after 08, we have new rules at the bank. Now, I talked about during the thing about how, banks are hiding rising defaults in things like auto, credit card, buy now, pay later, student loan, CRE, those things. But those aren't the biggest chunk of what a bank has. They have a pretty big diversified portfolio. But overall, there's new rules. They have to have a certain amount of safe capital to cover their losses. Now, here's the fucking update from today. Bank deregulation set to unlock $2.6 trillion of Wall Street lending capacity. A significant easing of post-financial crisis rules. If you read this article, it is specifically about how the Trump administration is rolling back the 2008 financial crisis rules that require banks to keep a certain amount of tier 1 capital. They don't need to keep as much on their books as is safekeeping. They can just go crazy with loans. Again, a huge amount of these loans, by the way, are going to go straight into the AI boom or bubble, depending on how you define it. These loans are going to go straight into building and funding more data centers. Now, if that works out great, great. If not, it's even more risk. So this is all happening now. So I would say all 3 of these things indicate some level of risk that is being mispriced. And I will say this is my last thing I'll say, okay? When I was in the car with Steve Eisman after the podcast, and I was talking to him more about it as we were driving, he's like, look, Ray Dalio may have billions and more dollars than me, but one thing he doesn't have is a movie. Everybody wants to predict the next short, okay? But I did it. And there's only one Steve Eisman, okay? Which I think is badass. But it does indicate to me that he is really proud. He's really proud of being the guy. And he doesn't like the fact that I opened the segment by calling it The Bigger Short and having the Jenga blocks. And I don't think he liked it. I think I got the sense that he's like, this is my shit. This is my area. And that's fine. That's fine. I thought he would be more playful with it, but I get it. I understand. And I really did like our conversation. And you know what? He can 100% be right. But I just don't think the arguments he made are holding water with what I'm seeing now.